So I guess this is a good segue to start talking about the abdomen and um, the abdomen and practice and energetics and anatomy in like 20 minutes, like a half an hour. But really the purpose of this lecture is just to kind of, well, I guess it'll be a conversation between you and I to kind of artistically begin to visualize, it's a word, just invented it with my mouth, artistically visualize the components of how everything is woven together and how asana begins to translate in this very sacred, energetic hub in the body. It's almost, you would think of the fulcrum of the body being the hips, right? Like downward facing dog as we're bending. But I really feel like the energetic fulcrum, and I'll be interested to hear your take, is at the abdomen, like at this solar plexus area where so much energy is sitting. Like it's the dividing space between the upward half and the lower half of the body. So we'll start just doing a nice meditation on that area. So you can stay just where you are if you want to find a nice, comfortable seated position. And bring both hands to your abdomen, right at the navel center. And start to begin to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. In through the nose and out through the mouth. Keep with this style of breath, in through the nose and out through the mouth. And start to feel your lungs as they inflate. See the muscles expanding, oxygen moving through blood vessels, air into the body processing that air, inhaling oxygen. As you exhale, releasing carbon. Also fat molecules, any holding, releasing of toxins that the body wants to get rid of is also released through the exhale. As you feel the lungs begin to relax and inflate even more with the breath, let your tongue rest gently behind your teeth at the roof of your mouth and open up the back of the throat and the sinuses. And the whole upper part of the body coming alive with the breath. That big inhale softly palpates downward onto the small intestines, the stomach, the liver, the spleen. That oxygen beeping life into the solar plexus region where your hands are. Maybe your stomach or your belly made a little gurgling noise. This breath, slow and deep and steady and relaxed. Awakening and invigorating those organs and that energy center into your hands. Notice if your palms have gotten warmer. Is there tension in your lower back? Can you release it with the exhale? And letting them lengthen with the inhale. And then go ahead and place your hands down on your thighs. Taking a few more deep breaths. And then go ahead and let that go. And when you're ready, go ahead and open up your eyes. Really good. So we're going to start our journey into the abdomen by taking a look at the muscles. So I'm going to pull up this really cool picture that I found on Wikipedia, of all places. Share screen here. Cool. So we're going to focus specifically on a couple of areas that are hotspots for the yogi, and things that you've probably heard me say a bunch of times. So it's not featured here, but if you can imagine here on these, like on the walls between the rib and the pelvis, and here, something called the transverse abdominis. It's basically like a barrel that wraps around the whole center of the belly. I like to think of it as like a corset. And as you are in your asana practice, this corset kind of stabilizes the structures, these bony structures of the spine, because everything is connected. When you engage the transverse abdominis, you're more than likely going to engage some of these guys too, kind of creating stability around L5 and S1 and all of these areas of the spine that can use a little TLC sometimes. And when you're doing those engagements in the asana, while you're focusing on your breath and movement, what begins to happen is those muscles during the day, they remember that. And, you know, they'll support the bony structures a little bit more readily than if you hadn't done the asana before. And I mean, in the asana practice too, if we think about standing series, right? Like it's all bending and folding in this area, like triangle pose, reverse triangle pose, extended side angle. So we're constantly working to integrate this part of the body in the muscular layer, like the musculoskeletal layer. And the QL, so this guy right here, he is super, super important. And so what can happen is in asana, when we're doing the practice, we'll do like extreme kicking back, like, I don't know, I call it very like crassy, like twerk butt, you know? But if you can even do it in your seat, right? Like go ahead and sit up and then let your tailbone kick back. Yeah. What happens to your lower back muscles? What did you feel?
I mean, I have that like issue with my disc back there, so it kind of like hurts when I do that. Like it triggers that nerve there to like have pain on the
Yeah.
left side.
Sorry that I put you in a position that made you feel that.
No, it's okay. It's not like irreversible or something. It's something that's kind of like always there,
Yeah.
but certain movements can cause it. I feel like that one sort of does, but probably because it's all connected.
Yeah, well, if you think about it too, right? So you kick the tailbone back and there's that compression on the nerve. Well, what happens when the pelvis goes from neutral to either, so posterior tilt is torque butt and anterior tilt is like grease lightning, whoo, like that movement, right? So
Hmm.
what happens is when you do that intense kicking back of the tailbone, and let's say you're kicking back the tailbone and flaring the ribs, these muscles, they'll contract, right? So the move is, we call it in yoga, we call it bandha, but we find an awareness or an engagement at the tailbone here, right? So this guy kind of tucks under just a little bit, not a lot. These muscles that are connected to these lumbar vertebra get a little bit of loving, get a little bit long. This gets neutral. This draws in. So this area is called Uddiyana Bandha, or there's just like a locking of energy there, or an awareness that the energy is pulled in there. And then these muscles become long and energetic, and thus the nerves inside of them are given space and elasticity as well. That combined with the movement of breath lights this whole area up. It's pretty magical. If you can go into like that artistic visualization piece of it. Um, I'm gonna pull up to another awesome visual that I found to kind of highlight some of the coolness here. So this artist that I found out of Phoenix. Her name is Monica. I'm going to pronounce it Aisa, but I apologize to her if I'm doing a discredit to the pronunciation of her name. Um, so this is going to be another major key player in our abdominal region in the musculoskeletal components is something called the psoas. And we've touched on it a little bit in class, and I mention it every so often, but I love this visual because you can really see like it's this deep supporting structure in the body that connects all the way down into the pelvis. And for women and men, but women especially, she brushes right up against the uterus and comes down in and through and all of these connecting wires and lymphs as well. So as we breathe up here, drawing the diaphragm down, filling the body with oxygen, exhaling to release any toxins, fat molecules, holding from the breath, like with the breath cycle, what she gets is blood flow, is circulation, is movement, and that feeds this whole area as well. So the yogis, you know, I didn't find a really good picture of Patanjali, and now I'm kind of wishing that I would have spent more time looking for him. Um, but Patanjali, he's sitting in lotus, and there's a snake that starts here and kind of wraps around the central axis of this deity of Patanjali, who wrote the Ashtanga, or who's like the god of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. So as yogis, we're kind of coiled in this area. Like this is a little bit lower than where we were going to go today, but it's hard to like officially separate the two. Um, but there's that snake, that coiling of energy. And have you ever heard of Kundalini? Right. So like the Kundalini energy or that rising up. And it really is so involved with this big psoas muscle here. And then, you know, the muscles that we had seen in the picture before around the QL and up and over here too. Super powerful stuff. This is another picture by Monica that I found that I really liked. Kind of the same thing, but she takes the psoas highlight away on the other side. So when you're in your asanas, as you're practicing, when you're taking the asanas, do you feel it's helpful to visualize in these particular, like with these particular areas? I'm just
I think
curious.
I think it's helpful to think about the musculature, like, and how the front and the back kind of all connect, like, especially with the spine, I suppose,
Yeah.
and like being able to keep a focus on it to keep it like active, I think is like helpful because
Mm,
sometimes I won't be doing that. And then especially in just like day-to-day life, like sitting in a chair and stuff, it's not active. I think that is a lot of like what leads to the deterioration. It's just like when I'm in the practice, it helps remind me to keep it in daily to-day life as well.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, that active awareness of the spine is clutch. And I love how you said, you know, just bringing awareness to like sitting in a chair, right? So I mean, again, we're like thinking about the abdomen, but it is all connected. So imagine in this particular drawing, right, if the knees were pulled up into a seated position and the pelvic bowl is kind of tilting back, it puts a lot of pressure on this particular area and it lets the psoas kind of, you know, relax and maybe not engage at all. And the psoas is such a supporting structure of the spine, helping to keep it aligned and in place and in that central axis. Um, you know, I think the standing desk revolution is kind of the, I don't know. I'm very much a sit and work gal. Like
Mhm.
I love the standing desk idea, but for me, I really enjoy sitting and really being focused. So like getting up and moving and making sure that those areas are being worked, I find it brings a new level of energy to the way that I'm able to participate in my work as well. Like there's something about the energy in that space that really, when it's kept moving, keeps the creative juices flowing, for me in my work. And I've been just becoming more aware of it as I've been kind of sitting with this workshop for the last couple weeks and preparing for it. Um, so we're going to move on to the organs. So I found this other really awesome picture we can meditate on for a little bit, um, from Codex Anatomy. So spoken like a true yoga nerd, right? I'm like, wow, look at the rectum. So intertwined in all of that kind of marbly, like muscular tissue, fascial tissue, you know, ligamentous tissue, the bones and the bony structures, we have these organs that are constantly receiving impulses and messages from the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve attaches right about here, runs down through the spine and kind of beeps out into the organs. So when we breathe, it sends signals to the organs to kind of work, right? And like they follow our circadian rhythms, they follow, you know, our breath rhythms, you know, the inhale and the exhale. If you ever wanted to do a fun experiment it works best in the morning because that's our special release time. But if you do something like we've done Nadi Shodhana together, right?
I don't know. Maybe.
Maybe. So Nadi Shodhana is the alternate nostril breathing.
Okay. I don't know if we've done it together, you and I specifically, but I've done it before.
Before. Okay, so Nadi Shodhana I find is a really, really neat way to feel the effects of the polyvagal response on the organs. So if we're talking about in the abdomen, right, you're, doing in through the left, out through the right, and it's slowing down the rate with which the body draws the air in, right? Because you're only going through the one nostril. And then as you're breathing, diaphragm drops down, hits the organs, and then with the air and the stimulus from the nervous system causes peristalsis. So it's just so interesting if you're kind of sitting and waiting for the thing to happen, to take Nadi Shodhana and really feel that intense polyvagal response beyond just the general circadian rhythm in the morning. And it's a little bit easier on the system than like a big jolt of caffeine, which can be a little bit hypertensive sometimes. It does cause like a relaxation in the muscles. I find after a cup of coffee, my body is much more awake. But then at like towards the middle of the day, I find like the muscles up here
A lot
or
of tension. Yeah.
yeah, lots of tension. Yeah. So to be able to kind of reduce that in a way that affords something like peristalsis or that feeling of elasticity in the body, the breath work down into the belly in particular can be just as effective as a cup of coffee, which is kind of fun to think, right? It's like free air, hugging trees, not just for hippies, for everyone. Um, so, um, yeah, top right, we've got the liver and the gallbladder, stomach, pancreas, um, colon, ascending colon. Um, so this is interesting because for many reasons, if you think about where the colon is placed in the body, and I think a lot about this, when we're learning to forward fold, right? Especially as beginners, if there's been, maybe hyper digestion or poor digestion or absorption in the body, or maybe even inflammation here, and we're bending at the waist. I'm kind of setting you up here, but what do you think that would affect if we're bending at the waist and there's like, let's go with like either inflammation or a holding in the colon?
That probably would lead to increased digestion, would be my guess, or
Yeah.
like more inflammation.
Yeah. Yeah, like so as we're beginning in yoga, and a lot of people in primary series, when they first start doing sun salutations, they'll be like, Melissa, I haven't stopped going to the bathroom for a week. Like, and that's not an uncommon thing. And a lot of it has to do with just that, half an hour, 45 minutes a day in the morning of increased blood flow and awareness to these places in the body that are looking for blood flow and absorption. Um, and a good way to kind of indicate if maybe there is some sort of digestive issues or perhaps like a food allergy is, for the regular practitioner, right? If you're an Ashtangi and you get up in the morning and you have really open hamstrings, but for whatever reason, for a week, you've just felt a lot of tension in the hamstrings, that could indicate a potential food allergy because it would be inflammation in the colon, right? We're not able to bend at the fulcrum of the waist as easily because of digestive issues. Even if the bowel movements are happening, there may still be inflammation in the gut. And it just it's so nice to have that awareness of the body, right? Because it's never really that ambiguous. You can always run tests on yourself. Uh, and then also too, like the stomach and the liver, when healthy and in balance, they're like the stomach is about the size of the fist, right? Um, but it like these organs, they can become inflamed too. So just like a constant increase of circulation and blood flow with these very therapeutic asanas in primary series um, by way of meditation in the abdomen, um, it's really incredible the kind of healing powers that the asana practice can have when done with an awareness on the breath, right? Like, um, and this is like purely a Melissaism, but I think so much is missed when asana is done simply for the athleticism of it. Like there's so much juice and so much vitality and balance that can be brought to it if an awareness is drawn to these deeper principles of the practice. Any questions about our cool little human anatomy sheet?
No, I guess it was like I couldn't decipher where the like large intestine and the small intestine are.
Right, right. So the small intestine is kind of like, let's see here. I have another picture as well. Sorry, give me 1 second. I gotta dig. I did a lot of geeking out today. There's a lot of pictures on my computer. um, so it's kind of like, here, let me, you are sharing. Stop share. Okay. Sorry, I gotta go out and come back in. Okay, here we go. So it's kind of it's kind of like situated in the middle here, right? And then the intestine kind of drapes up and over and comes down. There's a lot of stuff
Okay.
in the stomach. Wow, that's really an interesting diagram. Um,
Looks like worms.
doesn't it? Um, yeah, it's such like this intricate webbing in here. And so when we breathe, right, that peristalsis goes right into this large intestine. And if you ever feel the peristalsis happening in your belly before a movement, you can feel like you'll feel it going up and over and down if you breathe into it. It's pretty, I mean, I think it's neat. And bringing awareness to it is just, it's super rad. So then moving on to energetics. So in in yoga, there's the chakra system. Have you heard of the chakras? You've heard of the chakra system, right? The chakra system. Okay. So this picture is so silly. It's very dramatic, but it was like the best thing that I could find to kind of elicit exactly where this energy is, right? So this alignment here, right? Really nice open spine, right in line with the center. And then it's all twisting in the center space. Breath moves down into Manipura and ignites that energetic center. I mean, if we can think about primary series, right? It's like all, I mean, it's digestion based, right? So it's all like heel into the belly, folding over the belly, like all about palpating and keeping those organs nice and stable and clean, and energized with blood flow. Uh, I love this little guy here. So there's two other chakras that come before Manipura. We have Muladhara at the base, right? So it's the lowest part. Swadhisthana here at the sex organs, and then Manipura, which is up in the belly. So granted, like Manipura is the abdomen, the digestive fire, it actually doesn't track down as low as we went today. And in the coming weeks, as you're in your asana practice, you know, I'll encourage you to really feel out the difference in those layers, right? Of Manipura, that solar plexus area, then Swadhisthana in the more lower abdomen sex organ area, and then down at the base as we're moving in and out of the practice, and just feeling that energetic shift and change, and seeing what happens. So that is about 14 days worth of workshop in 20 minutes. I think each of those topics could probably be days long. And again, I think it's just really interesting to kind of like open the mind to what we're actually doing in practice, right? Like beyond just kind of getting up and moving our body and stretching and keeping healthy, like the intricate, versatile ways in which we're moving in these asanas and bringing them to life. Um, any questions?
I don't think so.
No? Okay, cool. Well then we can close out.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll go out with another nice little meditation to kind of wrap in all that information. So go ahead and bring your hands back onto your belly. And again, closing the eyes, breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth. And visualizing the transverse abdominis, that tube that wraps around the waist. As you breathe, inhaling, it expands. And as you exhale, it draws in. And then beneath that, a few more layers of abdomen and then into the organs. The large intestine wrapping around the small. Even deeper now into the spine, and just seeing and trusting and noticing the strong muscles holding it up and integrating. Can you feel your psoas as you breathe? Visualizing it attaching into the spine and wrapping down and into the pelvic bowl. And then finally, the energetic center of the solar plexus. the nerves intertwined and moving in their orbit, held in place by your muscles, tissues, and bones. And bringing both hands to prayer, heart center. We'll close today with one Om. Take a deep breath in. Thank you, Jess.
Yeah.
So good to see you. So good to